Alright, so I asked you, my Tumblr followers, for questions for this video. I decided to make it, even though I only got 3, because, well, each of these 3 kind of is a bit of a long story anyway. So, question 1. How did you get into Sound Horizon? Well, that's, kind of a long story, but, I guess can best be summed up by a friend of mine showed me a fan-made video that included, well, was basically the whole video was set to, the Battle of the Dying Heroes. So, I heard that song, and pretty much, was instantly hooked, but I had a hard time finding the rest of the music to begin with. A couple weeks later I stumbled upon another video that had Ishida Tami in it, and at first I didn't realize it was the same group. It took me quite a while to come to that realization, actually, that a lot of the videos that I've been watching around that time were all Sound Horizon. So it was more of, I was shown one video and then kind of accidentally stumbled into the fandom, and became a Laurent that way. First thing I ever bought for Sound Horizon was either my Evair cosplay, or I think was when I got Across the Horizon for Christmas. And from there I got Märchen, and then I got pretty much everything Linked Horizon since then. I got Elysion as well, and then I have all of Halloween, and then I bought the Assorted Horizons, the limited edition ones. So I got the big box, the big treasure box, and I like the big treasure box. But yeah, this kind of answered the second question is kind of sort of related. It was, when did you get into Sound Horizon? And that was about 4.5, almost 5 years ago. I got into it about 6 months before the release of Märchen. So I have to say, let's see, April-ish, somewhere between April and June of 2010. I was sent the original video that got me into it back in March of 2010, but I didn't really fall hard into the fandom until late spring, early summer of that year. So I was just in time for the hype in the lead up to Märchen. I didn't buy Ito because I didn't have money at the time. I was kind of broke, but yeah, so I think I tried to make up for that by buying limited and regular edition of pretty much everything since then. But yeah, how I got into it was probably very similar to how those of you who follow me who are into Sound Horizon got into it, kind of sort of stumbling into it. But yeah, that's pretty much that story. But I'm not great with talking. But anyway, the last question I got is one that I really like, that I could probably spend hours answering, but I'm going to try to make it as brief as possible. It's a 2-part question. The first part of the question is, who are your biggest historical idols? And really anyone who knows me knows the answer to that. It's really simple. Frederick the Great. He's, yeah, just if it wasn't obvious enough, musical about him, more of a musical about him, another movie about him, music he composed, and then this lovely birthday gift from a friend of mine. Yeah, it's a role-playing game for the 7 Years' War. So yeah, I think it's pretty obvious who my biggest historical idol is. But yeah, he's pretty much my life at this point, is studying him. I need to translate that quote at some point. But as far as the second part of the question goes, what did they do in history? That list would be really long. There was the War of the Austrian Succession, which knocked the Austrians down a few pegs. I'm never going to begin to get into my opinion on that, because that's going to get me a whole new string of enemies that I don't want. But then there is, of course, the next war he was in, which was the 7 Years' War, which here in North America we also know as the French and Indian War, which that's a whole nother thing. But he's also the one who first created a unified code of law for Prussia. Before that, it was kind of just, it wasn't cohesive. There was a law code, but it wasn't cohesive, and it wasn't written down in any one place. The law before that was just mostly a series of royal decrees, and he spent most of his later years creating a codified Prussian law code. Just this whole condensed version, and it's in the book that's like huge. He also wrote the Anti-Machiavel, which was his ideas of it was his response to Machiavelli's The Prince, and he basically had the complete opposite view. That was also written in, he was also good friends for a while before they got into a fight, and then made up later. Friends with Voltaire, the French philosopher, who he actually invited to come live with him in Potsdam for, I think, 3 years. There's an entire chapter in this book about him and his relationship with Voltaire. He was also a fabulous musician, apparently. And he composed symphonies, which is on this, flute concertos, which are on this. I'm going to learn those one day once I get my flute fixed and can actually buy the sheet music. And then flute sonatas and military marches as well. I can already play one military march, the Hohenfriedberger March. But anyway, as far as things that other things he did in history, interesting story that some people know, some people don't. He's actually the one who introduced the potato to Prussia and made it popular. Because he tried introducing it to people, but they didn't want it because it grew underground, and they were like, that's gross, we don't want it. So what he did was he planted a royal garden of potatoes and then set up soldiers to guard it. This made people think, hey, what's the king got in there that is so precious that it has to be guarded by soldiers? And then he'd tell the soldiers to relax their guard, like at night, and people would sneak in and steal the potatoes. And then he just didn't care. He allowed this to happen. And then he sent teachers and whatnot out to teach people how to farm potatoes properly. So yeah, some people find that story amusing. I found it pretty funny the first time I heard it. It's a story that's told by the tour guides when you go and visit his palace in Potsdam, Salms to See, which I've been to. It's actually really pretty. The grounds are massive. I'm amazed he didn't get lost in them ever. But yeah, he was kind of sort of the man who was never allowed to be what he really was, because he always had to put up a mask, no matter what. So the last paper I had to do on him, I called him the man behind the mirror. So yeah, there's lots more stories about him. If anyone else is interested, send me a message and I can maybe make another video telling some more stories about him. I can tell the story of the Dresden Affair. I call it the Dresden Affair, but it's quite interesting, I think. But anyway, that's the questions that I got, so that'll pretty much be the end of this video. And I'm sorry that I'm not wearing something slightly more interesting than jeans and my Prussia shirt, but I like my Prussia shirt. But yeah, maybe next time I'll get to show off my frilly dresses and stuff when I answer your questions. Anyway, that's all for now. Bye, guys.